the weather forecast with C3 Production.
Bonsoir and welcome to join me once again on this edition of the weather forecast. I believe you had a fulfilling day. We may tonight experience a relatively calm weather with light isolated showers expected in parts of the west and the east regions, and temperatures may get as low as 16 to 17 degrees in the northwest and west regions. The Adamuwa region expecting as low as 18 degrees. We may have the center, south and east regions as low as 20 degrees, and the southwest, littoral, north and far north regions would expect a minimum temperature between 21 to 23 degrees. Next, we move over to the far north region, where there may be no chance of precipitation in the entire region tonight, and a similar situation is expected by morning, though with a fully clouded sky and temperatures between 22 to 26 degrees. Next, we go over to the west region, where heavy precipitation is expected in Chang tonight, and a similar situation by morning with a clouded sky and temperatures between 16 to 18 degrees. Lastly, we move over to the east, where we may have heavy precipitation in Betwa tonight and heavy precipitation by morning in the town of Yokaduma and light isolated showers in the rest of the towns. It is important that we continue to step out really warm and also sleep on the well-treated long-lasting mosquito nets. Thank you for watching and see you next time.
Barely 48 hours into the new school year, learners and the teaching community in the northwest and southwest regions show their commitment to pursue education and overlay their fears. Administrative authorities acclaim the move. Prime Minister Joseph John Gote charges committee members of the 2021 African Nations Championship and the African Nations Cup of 2022 to pitch on every detail that will secure success during the committee's 26th session today. Ibralotin, 23 years after the demise of Cameroon's prolific artist, his works live on beyond the African continent. Tonight, the 7:30 News provides a reliving of his career that began with Moulé Mamam. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Those were the headlines of the 7:30 News.
Each of us must comply with the measures that have been taken.
Day 2 of the 2020-21 school year in the Northwest region has witnessed a sharp increase in the number of pupils present in class. Contrary to yesterday's timid turnout, Governor Adovle de l'Afrique noticed with satisfaction that parents and teachers have shunned the school boycotts and have opted to give children a chance to be educated. Karin Tosam reports that reassurances on security were also made during the tour to schools.
The turnout in most schools in Bamenda Tuesday, October 6, largely contrasts with the sluggish image on the reopening day. Both learners and teachers flooded into schools ready to deal with the school boycott operation that has dampened education in the region for the past 4 years.
We're expecting 36 have turned out. We have 316 students that have come in.
Some students are looking forward to recover from the time lost.
My life have been here for these 4 years, and I want to beg and let it help me to write my exam so that I will be able to support my family.
Northwest Governor, after an evaluation trip to some schools in Bamenda, talked of reinforced measures to deal with the coronavirus pandemic in the region.
To accompany the councils, to accompany the parents, the head of state has sent a special parcel of face masks that will be given to school authorities.
Authorities are keen on ensuring that the effective school resumption in the capital city, Bamenda, should be replicated in other troubled spots across the region.
School officials across the nation are expected to abide by the decision to enroll not more than 50 pupils per class as part of government's will to beat the coronavirus. With the desire to meet financial needs and to cover investment costs, do public and private institutions really respect the measure? Iwane Pole walks us through to some schools in Yaoundé to see its level of implementation. Here's his report.
Both public and private institutions of learning are gradually respecting physical distancing measure by limiting the enrollment of pupils and students per class.
We have 50 students per class, and we advise them to put on their face masks. The dormitories are also spaced out, unlike before, rooms that used to have 24 students, we have trimmed down to 10 students per room so as to maintain the social distancing.
If the number is above, we have already informed the parents that we are going to share the class into two.
The school authorities have solutions in case the number of students increase.
The institution have the school council, which can raise money and build another classroom.
So far with the admission, we are struggling to maintain the 50 students per class. The only issue we have here is the variation of classes, because for us in the private, we have some classes that are really large. So we are still struggling to see how we can keep that. We have done our best to ensure that our environment is COVID-free.
However, 2 days into the 2020-2021 school year, it's been noted that the number of learners in public schools and colleges is more than that of the lay private education sector.
The craving for private education in Cameroon is gradually dwindling as parents and proprietors are regularly at loggerheads over the permanent increase in fees. In this regard to official texts that regulate tuition in private schools, it is commonplace to find school officials who flaunt the 50,000 francs required. Beatrice Ngom investigates the financial hiccup in the sector.
Dotted across Yaoundé are structures like these that promote private education. But more and more, they are losing credibility in the face of parents. Many say proprietors think business instead of education.
People must not take Corona as a way to maybe to enrich themselves. Here, for instance, we focus on quality education more than money making.
For those whose annual expenses cost some 6 million CFA francs, proprietors say this plus other expenses will have an impact on tuition.
When fixing our fee is first of all the building, the didactic material. You need to look at where the school is situated. If it is in a central town or it is in a local environment.
Those who have made it a habit of upping tuition almost yearly can face the law.
The law that organizes private education has taken measures in Article 6. In the article, they are talking of two types of schools. Free private school will fix their tuition, while those on contract will sign conventions with the ministry. From there, we can have control over their tuition.
A text does exist homologating tuition in private schools at less than 50,000 francs CFA. Though obsolete, government is working on a new law that will classify schools into two categories, free and contract. Once operational, infrastructure and attendance rate will no longer be measuring tools for tuition.
Still in education, the two-shift system is mandatory for secondary schools, while the number of registered pupils per class surpasses 50. This is one of the innovations of the current school year, which will also see the intensification of virtual learning. Gerard Nanji Eyambe reviews the clarifications provided by Secondary Education Minister Professor Nalo Valyunga on the 7:30 News yesterday.
The 2020-2021 academic year has come with its peculiarities. One of them is the shift system as part of measures to curb the spread of COVID-19 in the school milieu.
You have two classes, one starting from 7:30 to 12:30 and the other from 1 o'clock to 5:30. The shift system simply means that you have more than the normal number of students to be in a classroom.
This will not be applicable in all cases.
If your class is not overpopulated, if it is not more than 50, then you don't have to split it. You don't have to have a shift system. So I don't expect to see schools that should not have a shift system having a shift system for the sake of making money.
Distance education has also been employed to make up for the initial 8 hours. The process is made complete with the aid of information and communication technologies.
Distance education means that you're doing it with several tools. You're going to have print and you're going to have CRTV. Most of those who are complaining about the fact that they don't have light or whatever, these lessons are going to be available to the children.
While adaptation sets in, some are hopeful that these new learning methods will be maintained.
Classes have effectively resumed in Ibolova, Betwa and the suburbs of the Central Region, with the physical presence of pupils and teachers estimated at over 95%. An earnest effort is being made by stakeholders to keep the school milieu safe from the coronavirus. Victor Sike presents a roundup of the start of the school year.
Betwa, East region of Cameroon. It is amid a bright and fair weather and in strict respect of COVID-19 barrier measures that students of the government bilingual high school Betwa answered present for the new academic year.
We bought scanners to test those who are entering into the campus. We have bought a lot of buckets. We have bought soap, face masks.
In the south, the day was marked with the visit of the governor, who was in 8 schools to assure the effective start of classes. Thousands of students from the different institutions turned out.
What I advised to the teaching staff is to ensure that the barrier measures of the government are respected.
Just like other parts of the country, pupils and students answered present to kickstart the 2020-2021 academic year in the center. In this region, the day was marked by the visit of the Secretary General at the Governor's office and the regional delegates of basic education to some establishments.
Assessment is good. We can realize that from this very first day, classrooms are quite full. We are quite satisfied of what we have noticed.
In all the institutions, measures have been taken by school authorities to ensure a hitch-free 2020-2021 academic year.
Inclusive education is gaining grounds to cater for children with special needs, despite a plethora of pedagogic challenges, such as the absence of sufficient appropriate teaching material. The state is bent on ensuring the sustainable and efficient follow-up of children with deficiencies. Maimuna Joya reports on the functioning of some centers in the Central Region.
The 2020-2021 back-to-school season also concerns children with special needs who must be counseled regularly and early enough in order to succeed in giving them equal opportunities as normal children following expert advice. But as easy as it may seem, the way is tough. It must, however, be emphasized that the education of children with deficiencies is mainly characterized by a specialized school plan, which demands that parents take down notes on specific aspects concerning their children. In Cameroon, the admission of children with special needs in public institutions is backed by a joint order from the Ministries of Secondary Education and Social Affairs, signed on August 2, 2006.
And away from the specialized centers in the South region, pupils residents in Equatorial Guinea and Gabon but registered in schools in Kiosi and Ambam are yet to begin classes. This is as a result of the fact that borders remain closed due to the coronavirus. That notwithstanding, Governor Felix Ngelengele has been assessing school resumption in the region. Clarence Azay tells us more.
Just like in other parts of the South region, hundreds of students and pupils answered present in schools across the border town of QC to kickstart the 2020-2021 school year. Many students who leave Equatorial Guinea and Gabon to study in QC are yet to show up as the borders remain closed.
We have students who have the difficulties to come to begin the school.
South Governor Felix Ngelengele has visited 8 schools in Ambam and Kiosi to measure the effectiveness of the resumption. He has urged school officials to continue reinforcing the COVID-19 barrier measures.
There was the presence of students, the presence of teachers, and the schools were clean.
He has also announced that Cameroonian and Equatorial Guinean authorities are working to find a solution so that students on the other side of the border can cross with ease to study in QC.
Now on to this good news that has nothing to do with education. The Libre 1 Council is the 2020 cleanest city. It grabbed the coveted award worth 150 million CFA francs during the 34th World Habitat Day. Representing Prime Minister at the event, Minister Celestine Kechakutas announced support to private estate developers for the construction of low-cost housing units. Cynthia Saptala reports.
For this year's edition of the World Habitat Day, the award of cleanest city now goes to the Libre 1 Council.
It is a collective victory of the entire population.
After deliberations from an independent jury, the choice of winners laid grounds for guidelines and recommendations for other council leaders.
I hope that all the mayors, as from now up to the 4th October 2021, they will continue fighting to keep their place clean.
With Cameroon's participation via video conference to the global event hosted in Indonesia, the minister talked of government's efforts to reduce the current housing deficit, estimated at 2 billion units.
We'll build a task force, we'll evaluate every year how many low-cost housing, how many housing do they produce.
2021 celebrations are now set to take place in Limbe, the town of friendship.
In economic news, 2 of the 11 integration projects of the Economic and Monetary Community of Central African States, CEMAC, have obtained financing. The decision to fund the Cameroon-Chad Electricity Interconnection Grid and the Interstate University project was taken during the 4th edition of the Paris Infrared Europlace. Caroline Okre-Anoma reports on the International Conference on Global Investment.
Day 2 of the Paris Infraweek Europlace International Conference was quite successful, with 2 of the 11 integration projects concretizing financing deals to invest on the infrastructure project.
I think the engagement of CEMAC is very, very interesting because this engagement has a tradition within meetings with all the specialists of the infrastructure ecosystem, lawyers, bankers, accountants, private equity funds, public agencies, etc.
I think it's fundamental for the development of those countries and the region, so it's a very positive move. So we will work with CEMAC, and we have a planned session to work in more detail on their project and their strategies and all the different things that they want to do.
After the plenary sessions, CEMAC's permanent secretary and its delegation held close meetings with the CEO of Paris Europlace and the Director General of the Meridian. So far, the sky is blue for the CEMAC's high-level mission.
And now in diplomacy, the ambassador of Equatorial Guinea to Cameroon has been granted audience by the president of the National Commission for the Promotion of Bilingualism and Multiculturalism, Peter Mafani Musonge. Both officials discussed the possibility of Cameroonians making the most part of the opportunity to study Spanish in Equatorial Guinea. Here's an excerpt of the Equatorial Guinean diplomat after the audience.
I came to discuss with the President of the Commission about the promotion of bilingualism in Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea. We have many students from Equatorial Guinea studying in Cameroon. It is important that they are able to speak French and English at the end of their studies. Cameroonians in Equatorial Guinea should also be officially given an opportunity to learn Spanish.
The wearing of face masks in public places will be mandatory until further notice.
Before we talk about the coronavirus, let's continue talking about diplomacy. The government of Egypt has pledged to accompany Cameroon in the construction of the northwest and southwest regions. The engagement was taken by the Egyptian ambassador to Cameroon, His Excellency Medat Kamal El Meligi, during an audience with the Minister of Public Works, Emmanuel Ngano Jumesi. In a separate audience, the Belgian ambassador to Cameroon, His Excellency Eric Jacquemin, and the chargé d'affaires to the American Embassy, Vernal Trimfree, Fritz Patrick also discussed cooperation ties in road construction. We now talk COVID-19 and schools. At secondary education sector, the respect for barrier measures is quite high, with both pupils and their teachers conscious of the danger. However, officials say they will not relent efforts to continue sensitizing. Baldwin Summer with his guest, the sub-director in charge of school assistance in the ministry, Are Mathias Bate, spell out how this will happen. Hello, Baldwin. In the ministry, Are Mathias Bate, spell out how this will happen. Hello, Baldwin.
Good evening to you, Esther Kima, and welcome. That is what exactly we shall be discussing with Mr. Are Mathias Bate, who is the sub-director for school assistance in the Ministry of Secondary Education, how they have been able to respect some of these barrier measures so far on day 2 for back to school for this school year. Mr. Are Mathias Bate, good evening. Good evening. Tell us, what evaluation can you make so far talking about the respect of barrier measures in different secondary schools on day 2 for this new school year?
I can say they are very, very encouraging because the schools' campuses have been disinfected, classroom disinfected. They have made provisions for the washing of hands, and social distances is maintained because they have 50 students per class in each of the classes in the schools around the country for now.
And one of the recommendations before the start of this school year was that teachers had to be screened, had to be tested for COVID-19. What's the situation on the ground so far?
The situation is also very, very encouraging because the teachers, it's a continuous process. Following the directives of the Minister of Secondary Education, Professor Nalova Leonga, she gave instruction that all teachers should be tested. The process is ongoing, and this is being carried out by the various health districts in the country. And the teachers themselves are very, very enthusiastic to do that. And again, they have put all their hands on deck as educators, as parents, to make sure that the barrier measures are being respected to the latter.
Thank you so much, Mr. Are Mathias Bate, Sub-Director for School Assistance in the Ministry of Secondary Education. And they say that the Minister of Secondary Education, Professor Nalova Leonga, is firm on that. All these barrier measures must be respected by the students and equally by the teachers, so as together they should stop the spread of the coronavirus in the secondary education sector in the country. Back to you, Esther Kima.
Thanks, Baldwin, for details on what the Ministry of Secondary Education is doing to curb the spread of the coronavirus in the country. We now take you to Parliament. The annual program for the reinforcement of capacities of personnel of the National Assembly has ended with calls for the need to abide by the teachings provided. The third phase was closed today by the Senior Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Ilarion Etong. Details on the culmination of a 6-month training in this report.
From improved knowledge in English and French to promoting computer literacy, these personnel and the annual training on rules of protocol, parliamentary diplomacy, and the drafting of administrative correspondences.
Without this training at the background, our job of doing this research work to facilitate the work of the Secretary General of National Assembly, it would not be very possible.
The skills acquired are considered vital for the institution by the House Speaker's representative.
If all those who were trained apply what they learn, our parliamentary administration will become efficient to accomplish the mission of our House chamber successfully.
In 6 months, the staff's competence has been given a fresh impetus.
It was a very great success, and we hope that we are going to see the impact in our administration.
The 2021 phase is in maturation at the General Secretariat, conversant with the needs of Cameroon's parliamentary setting.
As announced in one of our top stories, members of the committee charged with the preparation of the 2021 African Nations Championship and the 2022 African Nations Cup have been urged to ensure the success of both competitions. This was in the course of the 26th session of the committee chaired today by Prime Minister Joseph John Goethe. Christian Chatham reports that an assessment of the infrastructure under construction was also made.
Holding 100 days to the start of the African Football Championship, which will be followed by the African Nations Cup a year later, this 26th session of the committee tasked with preparing the CHAN and the AFCON had as objective to evaluate the level of preparedness of sports infrastructures and hotels in the country, but also the functioning of the organizing committee as well as the preparations of the Lions. From the 3 exposés presented during the session, the general impression is that the country's main sports infrastructures are ready.
Avant la survenue de la pandémie du Covid,
everything was ready even before the COVID-19 pandemic, but there has been some degradation, so the session has enabled us to take measures on how to repair the damaged.
Prime Minister Joseph Dion-Gutte has urged members of the committee and heads of different administrations concerned with the events to polish every detail and ensure that everything is in place and on time. He has given special instructions for the extension of water, electricity, and TV signals to all sites, the completion of video surveillance coverage, and the acceleration of negotiations for the funding of the Olembe Sports Complex and the east entrance to Douala.
And now on today's press release from the Prime Minister's office, the Prime Minister, Head of Government, Chairperson of the National Decentralization Board, will chair by video conference on Wednesday, the 7th of October 2020, as from 10 a.m. the first ordinary session of the board for the 2020 financial year, created by Law Number 2019/042 of 24th of December 2020, bearing on the General Code of Regional and Local Authorities. The National Decentralization Board is responsible for monitoring and evaluating the implementation of the decentralization process. The board is comprised of members of government, members of parliament, representatives of the Economic and Social Council, representatives of local authorities, as well as the civil society. It is signed by the Secretary General of the Prime Minister's Office, Fouda Séraphin Magloire. And another press release, the Minister of the Economy, Planning and Regional Development, Mr. Lamine Ousmane May, has the honor to inform the national and international public opinion that following the very high instructions of the Head of State, Mr. Mohamedou Labarang, Ambassador to Cameroon to the Republic of Egypt, has signed on the 4th of August 2020 with the Arab Bank of Economic Development in Africa a loan agreement for an amount summing up to about 7 billion CFA francs for the financing of the construction and equipping of the Mbalmayo Regional Hospital project. The financing that aims to strengthen the supply of health infrastructure in Cameroon will consist of the construction and equipment of a 3rd category hospital specialized particularly in the treatment of severe burns. And now, on to one of our other top stories. It's been 23 years since the talented and exceptional singer Ibralotin passed on. Decades later, the works of the son of a pastor continue to thrill many music lovers. From his debut in 1962, when he released his first song titled Mole Mamwam, to his awards and his ascension, Constantin Baum gives us details of almost all in this report.
The song did not bring him much material satisfaction, but he remained confident and cultivated his love for the gift he had from birth. He worked day and night until he found success.
I think it's time that we give him a tribute to all that he's done for our country and to keep his image and his memory and his songs, make them live on to the next generation by remixing them.
His works, Matumba Matumba and Besombe, achieved Pan-African and international success. He was invited to the first Pan-African Festival of Algiers in July 1969, where he represented Cameroon. And was invited as well by Emperor Bokassa I, Marien Ngouabi in the Republic of Congo, in Gabon by Omar Bongo in March 1970. This explains why, even after death, his songs live on across the African continent, as a younger generation of musicians have found a good source of inspiration from his creativity.
This edition of the news in culture, the chairman of the Control Commission of Collective Management Bodies hereby informs the general public, both at the national and international level, that some SONACAM administrators who no longer have the legal right and competence have been extorting dues of copyright and related right loyalties on the field in violation of the regulations in force. The chairman of the Control Commission of Collective Management Bodies strongly condemns this practice, which not only confuses users, but also, and most of all, does not allow for the traceability of funds collected. He therefore reminds all that the collection of the dues is going on all over the national territory and concerns 5 accredited collective management bodies, notwithstanding their compliance period, which extends till the end of the month of November 2020. That ends this edition of the 7:30 News. More news comes up at 8:30 p.m. with Adel Mbala. I'll be back tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. God willing. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to our programs on the CRTV. Good night.
In this connection, we should avoid stigmatizing